You want to be rich. You want the house, the freedom, the number in your bank account that makes your stomach unclench. But you also really don't want to do anything hard today. Here's the good news. You don't need more willpower. You need one simple skill instead. In this video, we're breaking down what the Marshmallow Test reveals about millionaires, why your brain grabs the smaller reward now, the lazy trick rich people use instead of willpower, how compounding turns boring choices into millions, why waiting isn't the same as suffering, and the system you can steal today. In the late 1960s, psychologist Walter Miskell put 4-year-olds in a room with one marshmallow. They could eat it now, or wait alone and get 2 marshmallows later. Some kids caved in seconds. Others distracted themselves. They covered their eyes, sang songs, looked away, anything to avoid staring directly at the reward sitting in front of them. It wasn't about gritting their teeth. It was about strategy. Decades later, researchers tracked those same kids down as adults. The ones who waited longer tended to have higher test scores, better health outcomes, and yes, higher incomes down the road. But here's the part almost nobody mentions. It was never really about raw willpower. The kids who waited longest were the ones who found clever tricks to make the marshmallow disappear from their attention. That distinction matters more than anything else here. Delayed gratification isn't a fixed personality trait. It's a set of tricks. Lazy people are actually perfectly suited to use them, because lazy people are experts at finding the easiest path. So why does your brain want the reward right now instead of the bigger payoff later? Economists call it hyperbolic discounting. Your brain values a reward today far more than the exact same reward next month. This isn't a flaw in your character, it's ancient wiring. For most of human history, later was never guaranteed. A piece of fruit today kept you alive. A piece of fruit next season was a gamble. Psychologist Angela Duckworth, who studied long-term achievement for years, found that people who stuck with hard goals weren't relying on constant motivation. They built routines so automatic the hard choice stopped requiring any decision. The most disciplined people you know aren't fighting a daily battle with their own laziness. They removed the battle entirely. They built a system where the productive choice is also the easiest one. That's great news if you're lazy, because lazy people are naturally obsessed with efficiency. The trick is redirecting your shortcut hunting instinct toward building a system, instead of using it to escape the work. Let's talk about money specifically. Say you invest a modest amount every month into a simple, diversified fund instead of spending it on things that feel good right now. On its own, that looks unimpressive. But money left alone doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows on a curve. You earn returns on what you put in, and then returns on those returns too. This is compound growth. It's slow and unremarkable for years before it suddenly isn't. The wealth doesn't show up during the boring part. It shows up because you survived the boring part without touching it. This is why so many self-made millionaires describe their strategy as unbelievably simple. They didn't outsmart the market with genius trades. They just didn't touch their money for a very long time. Here's the uncomfortable part. Every year you spend the extra money instead of letting it sit. You're not just losing that money. You're losing every year of growth it would have generated afterward. If you here invest for 30 years and immediately feel exhausted, you are not broken. Neuroscientists found that thinking about your future self activates roughly the same brain regions as thinking about a stranger. That means your struggle with delayed gratification was never a moral failing. It's a wiring issue, and wiring issues can be worked around the same way lazy people root around every other inconvenience. So how do you actually use this? Trick 1 is automation. Set up automatic transfers into savings or investments the moment your income arrives, before your present-focused brain even gets a vote. Trick 2 is environment design. Make the impulsive choice slightly harder and the smart choice slightly easier. Delete the shopping app. Leave your card at home. Hide the account that tempts you to spend. Trick 3 is shrinking the decision. You don't need to decide to be disciplined for 30 years. That thought is terrifying. You only need to make the smart choice once, today, and repeat it. This is the same principle behind the marshmallow kids who covered their eyes instead of staring at the reward. They weren't stronger. They just made the temptation invisible to their weaker impulses. There's also a mental trick worth stealing. When people imagine a reward as vivid and specific, like the exact vacation or house, their willingness to wait actually increases. Vague future wealth motivates nobody. So instead of telling yourself, I'm saving for the future, picture an oddly specific scene. The exact apartment, the exact morning you quit a job you hate, the exact number on a screen. Let's clear up a misunderstanding. Delayed gratification doesn't mean constant suffering for 30 straight years. People who allow themselves small, planned rewards along the way actually stick with a bigger goal longer. The sustainable version isn't never enjoy anything. It's enjoy things on purpose, not on impulse. A planned treat that fits your system is completely different from an impulsive splurge that sabotages it. Here's another laser-friendly reframe. Instead of thinking of saving as giving something up, think of it as buying your future self out of a problem, $1 of avoided future struggle at a time. Your brain responds far better to avoiding a loss than to chasing a vague gain. Framing patience as protecting future you from struggling taps into that instinct instead of fighting against it. One more thing from the Marshmallow research matters here. Kids who had learned that adults kept their promises waited far longer than kids who had learned that promised rewards often didn't show up. Translate that into adult terms. If you've broken your own promises to yourself before, your brain assumes the future reward is a lie and grabs the smaller one now instead of waiting. The fastest way to become naturally more patient is building a track record of keeping small promises to yourself, so your brain starts trusting that later is actually real and worth waiting for. So here's the playbook if you're lazy but ambitious. Automate the boring decision. Make impulsive choices slightly harder to access. Picture your future reward in vivid detail instead of a vague concept. Allow yourself small, planned rewards so you don't burn out. And keep tiny promises to yourself so your brain starts believing the bigger reward is actually coming, one small proof at a time. None of that requires becoming a different person, or working 16-hour days, or superhuman willpower. It requires building a system lazy enough that your future self barely has to try it all. The wealthy people who look like they have it all figured out usually aren't fighting harder than you. They just stopped relying on daily willpower decades ago and let boring systems do the waiting. If you had to wait alone in a room with one marshmallow right now, be honest, would you make it to the second one? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know. If this gave you a system instead of just more guilt about being lazy, hit subscribe. New videos on the psychology of money, habits, and human behavior drop every week.